Hey everyone, welcome back to the Frankenstank show. I'm a little bit rusty, had a bit of a rough week. I was actually supposed to record with Chris here, Hero J, last Tuesday. Had a bit of a medical issue and we had to postpone, but here we are a week later, ready to roll and feeling better and a little tired, not gonna lie, very wore out. I took like an hour-long nap before we came on, but you guys might know him better as Hero J. He will be able to tell you what his team name was in Frankenstank last year and why that means so much to him. But Chris, man, I thank you for your patience. I appreciate you working with me and getting this episode in. The Frank has meant a lot to me over the years, so to be able to get these in is going to mean a lot. And but anyway, Hero J, man. Tell us a little bit about your team name from last season and just your experiences overall with Frankenstank.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks for having me back. It's good to see Frank back. I love the strategy behind it, and I love all the crazy interactions in the monster cards. As a small aside, for those that don't know me, my buddy Nathan and I, we run a similar style league called Fantasy Powers League. You can check us out at fantasypowersleague.com. We have a bunch of fun interactions and trades and whatever. So if you're interested in something similar, please hit us up. The last couple of years when I was able to do Frank, my team's name is Strahd von Zarevich, and he is a epic vampire from Dungeons and Dragons. There's a big campaign based around him, and everyone's picking traditional monsters. I decided to go a little bit different. So, for those D&D nerds out there like me, Team Strahd, baby.
Oh. So I did try D&D. For a few episodes, we actually did D&D on the Toilets of Titles show. So those are filed away in the archive somewhere. You could go and find them, and it was a lot of fun. I think it were like 6 episodes that we did over the same campaign, and they just kind of fell apart, unfortunately. But I did actually have a little bit of fun. I even went out and bought the dice and was starting to get into my character and everything. So it was a bit of fun. But the Fantasy Powers League also was a hell of a lot of fun. I took a lot of time off this past season, including from Frankenstank. I had to focus on my personal health and mental health and my own well-being. And but before that, I did play in the Fantasy Powers League as well. So make sure you guys are reaching out to Chris. If you guys like Frankenstank, you're going to like the Fantasy Powers League. In fact, the Week 14 rule for Frankenstank last year for the playoffs, that was an idea that I stole directly from the brain of Chris and Nate. And even some of the monster cards, especially some of these newer ones, are kind of slightly loosely based off of some of the powers that are over there in the Fantasy Powers League. So, and Chris and Nate were running this league long before they found out about Frank. I was running Frank long before I found out about their league. And then before the show, we were both talking about how Chris has been kicking around the idea of doing a draft show. And guess what? We moved Toilets to Titles into a draft show. I think we're just the same kind of sick, Chris. I think that's what it is.
Got that same twisted mindset of what crazy stuff can we get into, right?
So, guys, please reach out to him, fantasypowersleague.com. You can also find him at least on the Discord, but at Hero J. And comment.
Beast Guy, X, whatever you want. That's me everywhere. So
there you go.
Appreciate it.
Comment on the comment section, though, if you guys have any questions about Frank, if you're interested in joining Frank and you never have been in it before. If you have been in it, especially last season, if you were in it last season, you're going to get an invite most likely for this next season, unless your only contact is through X, because I don't do X anymore. But and even then, you might get one. I might be able to talk Mark into sending out those invites. He's a glutton for punishment too, so maybe he might help me in that battle. But I'm going to leave that on the ticker down at the bottom, Fantasy Powers League, so you guys don't forget in case you tune in later on. But the monster cards, oh shoot, I am slacking here. I forgot to share my screen. Here we go. The monster cards that we're talking about today are all defensive cards. This is a new category, guys. So the last category we did was the transaction card category. We've gone through all 12 of those. Chris is helping me kick off the defensive cards. The defensive cards, this is my favorite category because defensive cards can be used in a lot of different ways. As an example, the Slimer Ghostbuster card has been my favorite card. It's the one that I've had in most seasons. And you're about to find out why. So here's the description on the Slimer's Ghostbuster card. You get to block your opponent from using their monster card. They still lose their monster card as if they had played it. This needs to be played within 12 hours of your opponent playing his or her card. The blob. I have kind of in parentheses some examples of what can and cannot block others, but off on the right, that's all going to change because off on the right is a list of all the different cards that can and cannot be affected on this table. Again, as a reminder, in case you've missed the past episodes, off to the right of the table, like if I go right here, it says Slimer can block the blob. That would have said in here already before, but now I'm going to have to get rid of a lot of those parentheses. But anyway, just remember that if you're playing Ghostbuster against Freddy, the Freddy owner must bench their player, but they don't, they're Freddy player for that week, but they don't actually lose the Freddy card moving forward. But anyway, basically that's how the Ghostbuster card works for most monster cards played against them. If you play your Ghostbuster card in the playable card thread within 12 hours of that card being played against you, then you void that monster card. It says the card can be used twice per season. So that was the only big change that I made to Ghostbuster for this next season, because there's so many other new and powerful cards. And since you're going to have 3 monster cards on each team now, I figured I wanted to make this a little bit more powerful and make it so that you could use it twice per season to block other people from using their cards against you. But that's the basic gist of the Ghostbuster. So Chris, what are your thoughts on Ghostbuster, and do you have any questions or strategies on it?
No, I really like defensive powers and defensive cards. I mean, it basically allows you to kind of play your own game, because people know if they try and do something to you, you can always stop them, right? So I don't know the breadth and depth of every single card you've made this season, Justin, but I know from when I was playing last season, there were a lot of great things out there that you'd want to try and stop. Like my first season in Frank, I drafted Freddy, and I thought that was amazing. I think he's still probably one of the best, barring what you've written so far. But being able to bench your opponent's, all-star player for that week sounds fantastic, right? Because Freddy gets, what the top 10 average of that position for the week, if memory serves, right? Yep. So being able to stop that potential 50 to 70 points or whatever it is, because I know Frank has weird scoring rules, I think that's very powerful. So being able to do that, very good. If somebody's trying to steal from you, right, you can stop that. If someone's trying to do something to affect your matchup or do something to affect it so they beat you and they steal your player, absolutely, I want to stop that. So I agree. I think Slimer's very strong. I think he'll definitely have his place in the early rounds of the draft. And, now knowing that there's 3 cards per commissioner per season, that could be even more spicy to definitely take this more highly.
Yeah, so here's the strategy that I used with the Slimer every year that I've had him, and that is I straight up contact my opponent for that week, the week before, and say, hey, don't forget, I've got the Ghostbuster. So if you play your card or any card against me, well, usually it's just if you play your card, but now we're going to have multiple cards. I'll say, or any card against me, then I'm going to play the Ghostbuster. It's going to void out, and we're both going to lose the card. So you're just going to be wasting your card against me. And by doing it that way, your opponent knows not to play their card, and you never have to play your card. So then you get to keep it for weeks to come.
The threat of playing it is almost as good as needing to play it, right? You know, who wants to be the one to fall on the grenade for everybody else? It's the worst position to be in because you get nothing out of it then, right?
Exactly. So I never actually had to play my monster card all of those years that I had it. So essentially I got to play it every week without ever even needing to play it. Let's see. Again, if you look off to the right, we're going to find an example here. So this one says Ghostbuster can stop Krampus. For those of you that may have forgotten from a previous episode, we did talk about Krampus. Krampus is a card where you can steal from your opponent's roster from their starters or their bench if you win. Because in Frank, if you win, you get the vampire steal and you get to steal one of their starters. This allows you to also steal a bench player. So if you're trying to hide your better players on the bench because you know you're going to lose and they play their Krampus, you play the Ghostbuster to block it. So that's just an example of how you can use it. Rumpelstiltskin. This is one of my man John Sheps. He created this card, and at first I didn't think that it was going to be as big as it was. It ended up being a huge favorite. So here it is. Prior to your weekly matchup, you can play this card to block a specific player from being taken from your roster in the event that you lose. If you do lose, you keep the card. Your opponent will not be aware that you have used the card, or which player you are blocking. I think you need to reword that. If your opponent tries to steal the player that you blocked, then your opponent, or you keep your player and get to take a player from their starting lineup in return. And then you return a player from the same position as if you had won, just like as if you had won. So you also get to keep the card to play it again at your leisure. If your opponent does not take the player that you blocked, then you lose the player they chose and you lose the card. If your opponent does not try to steal anyone, then you keep the card. This card can be played as often as you like until you lose the card. Protected players must be announced to a team member of TWD, which that's now going to change to your league commissioner in your division. Let's see. Okay, so this is one of the secretive cards, and we still have several. We still have the same secretive cards, and I swore I was going to get rid of those because they're a lot more difficult on the commissioner, but they're just so damn fun. And I actually ended up adding several more. So there are secretive cards. So like this one, you don't play in the playable card thread, so your opponent doesn't know that you're playing it. Basically, it's like if let's say I have 3 really good players on my roster. I've got CMC, I've got Josh Allen, and I've got CD Lamb. I can use Rumpelstiltskin card to protect one of them. And let's say I protect CD Lamb for that week because I know my opponent really needs wide receivers. Basically, if Chris beats me and he tries to steal CD Lamb from me and I have protected him, then now I announced that Rumpelstiltskin was played and I had saved CD Lamb. So instead of him stealing CD from me, I get to steal a player from him instead. That's basically how the card works. Now, if I win, then nothing happens. I still get to keep my card. We don't even announce that I even played it. If I lose and Chris doesn't try to steal CD Lamb, he tries to steal somebody else, CMC, then I lose the card. That's the only way you can really lose the card is if you lose and you protect the wrong player. But otherwise, it can be pretty powerful if you're protecting the right player and they try to steal them. So in a nutshell, that's the Rumpelstiltskin card. What do you think of that one, Chris?
I like it a lot. I think it has a lot of potential. For my Yu-Gi-Oh players out there, you've activated my trap card, right? That's what this is. I'm trying to protect this dude. You picked him. We've now turned the tables and I get to steal. I think I saw this happen twice in my division in the last season of Frank, which is very powerful, right? You know, there's a certain game within a game that a lot of these cards like to play, which I really appreciate and I love the strategy for. Like with our last Slimer Ghostbuster, right? There's the game within the game. If you play it right, you never have to use your card. With this, you can set your roster in a certain way or whoever you're playing against knowing, crap, they really need a running back. I bet you they're going to take Gibbs. So I'm going to make Gibbs the only starting running back that's worth stealing. And then you can get him if you lose, right? So there's a little bit of strategy there. I really like that. And if you play this the right way, you know, you could have a not great start to the season and it could really turn around like, oh, I've only got 2 good players left. Well, they're not going to take a quarterback, so they're going to take this guy. So you got to kind of learn how to flip it on him, metagame him a little bit. You know, I really like it. A lot of potential. This is one of those things that, again, I think any of the cards that are in this format, if you can use them multiple times, makes it a little bit better than the rest.
Yep. Yeah. So speaking of twisted strategy, this one also with Krampus has an extra little note off to the side. So this says if your opponent has Krampus, they may try to use this card to take a bench player. So therefore, when you play Krampus, Rumpel may choose to protect a bench player as well if they'd like. So that's just like a little added piece. So it's like the card rule has extended just to specifically against that card. So that's something else to think about as you're going after you get a card. You definitely want to go through this chart and see how they match up against other cards that were drafted in your division. Another thing about Rumpel, let's say using the same example that you did, you could also try to do this to make it look super obvious and be like, man, he really needs a running back. I'm only going to start Gibbs as my only real stealable running back. But then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to protect CD Lamb just because I think that maybe he might think that it's obvious that I'm saving Gibbs and who couldn't use a CD Lamb. Maybe he'll try to steal him instead. And then he finds out that CD Lamb was actually saved. But then you're also exposing your Gibbs too. So yeah, a lot of crazy stuff.
How deep do the mind games go? How in depth down the chain? Well, he thinks that I think that he thinks, so we're gonna do this. And it's like, that's what I love about this. You guys gotta play Frank if you're not. I'm telling you, it's so much fun.
It's a real Princess Bride moment.
Exactly.
Negan Smith was a new one last year. Negan as a character has always been one of my personal favorites. So I had to find a way to fit him in there. My wife and I, we kind of bond over zombies. So Negan had to be on there. So Negan was a monster, but still tried to protect the saviors, right? So in the Walking Dead. So in the Frank, with the Negan card, you get to choose any player to designate as a protected player that cannot be stolen for the entire season. You must designate the player to be protected before kickoff of the first game of week 1. If you drop that player at any point in the season, then you lose the card. You may transfer this card protection to a different player only one time during the season. So that is the adjustment I made to Negan from last year, because last year, if you dropped CMC because he got hurt, which a lot of people had CMC protected, and then a lot of them only held on to CMC and Frank just because he was also the Negan player, and they were really hoping he would come back. But now, even if the player's not out or you don't drop them, you can still choose to switch the protected player one time. If you choose to do so, you must announce the switch after waivers have ran for the week, and by 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time before the Thursday night football game. This new player will then be your protected player for the remainder of the season. So that is one adjustment I made to Negan to make him a little bit stronger, just because of the predicament that we saw happen with CMC last year. A big star player was tagged in two or three different divisions with the Negan card to protect him, and then he went down early, and then it's like you've wasted your card. So that's why I made that one adjustment to Negan headed into Frank 6.
I definitely like the strategy behind it. We did the live draft last year, or the last time it took place in Canton, and yeah, the same thing happened in our division. Guy took CMC, guy took Negan to protect CNC. He held him most of the year. Didn't matter, right? CMC got to go a whole good 2 weeks or something that year, then he got hurt again, right? So I like the change. I like the ability to swap at once. It's always a feels bad when you invest so much in a strategy like this, and then it just doesn't go your way. So I agree with giving a little bit of leeway there, especially because this is a vampire league after all, right? So the ability to protect one guy all year, that you can rely on, is still very big. You put it on somebody like a Gibbs or a CMC or a Josh Allen, right? And hey, I've got him for the whole year. I don't have to worry about benching him. I don't have to worry about whatever. I know I'm safe, right? And the fact that it happens all year means, again, I think the cards that you can use multiple times, or the cards that have, that staying power, have a little bit more value. So I could see this one be taken a little bit higher now that there's that fix in place.
Absolutely. So the attached little side rule that I'm going to throw on this one is, let's say you're going up against the Puppet Master card holder, and we went over the Puppet Master in a previous episode. You can go back and watch it. I'm going to pretend like I'm pointing down at that link when I really don't even know how to do that anymore. But go watch the Puppet Master episode. But the player that is protected by Negan cannot be involved in a Puppet Master forced trade. Okay, so for those of you that don't remember the Puppet Master, you can make a forced trade with two teams that have nothing to do with you or your opponent, just two other teams in the division, out of nowhere. Go make some crazy wild trade that's going to shake up the league. If Chris has the Puppet Master, I've got Negan, and I'm going up against Mark, then Chris out of nowhere can try to do a forced trade between myself and Mark. And if he does, my player that's been tagged by Negan cannot be involved in that trade. So just one of those little side rules. Always look at your side rules.
I assume it's protection from everything, right? So
basically, yeah. But if there is something crazy or different or weird, it'll be on the spreadsheet. But so far, I mean, yeah, I think Negan's pretty much going to be a protector for against anything for the most part. I haven't
no
gotten
steals, no powers. Yeah, it makes sense, right? You want that uninterrupted, that unbreakable thing. And if you're investing, 2 roster spots worth of space on this, you want to make sure it can't be messed with. So
yeah, and I haven't gotten to like Negan versus Ghostbuster, so I think maybe something like that. It might be like the Ghostbuster can be used to at least force you to bench the Negan player that week or something. I don't know if somebody wanted to. Look who's in the chat. Long time no see, buddy. Oh, actually, I've already commented and mentioned you a couple times. I think since that was way back early when we first started, but. Love me some Sheps. Miss you, buddy. Yeah, and John Sheps, one of the, actually the creative mind. Truth be told, he's the one that actually said one day, and I remember I ended up taking the phone call out in my backyard, and I don't know what I was doing out there, but it wound up being about an hour-long conversation about this crazy fantasy football league with John. Just walking, pacing back and forth in the backyard. My wife thought that something was wrong, and I was like, "Oh no, there's so much right." So yeah, he's the mastermind. That's why on the Frankenstank card, the trading card, he's the Dr. Frankenstein. He's definitely the mad scientist behind all this. So, but yeah, so. That's it for the third monster card rule that we're going to go over today. The next 3 that we're going to be going over, and I kind of have another guest lined up for a strong possibility. It would be Batulok, the champion from last season's Frank. Him and his son, they actually co-managed a team, and they're going to be coming on together, hopefully, if the schedule works out right, either tomorrow or Thursday. And we're going to be going over the Invisible Man, Wolfman, which was formerly known as the Silver Bullet. I turned it into the Wolfman. And then Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz, just because my son, who was like 19 at the time, said that he wanted a Dr. Doof from Phineas and Ferb card. And I said, you know what? Why not? So I created one. They're not all actual monsters. So sometimes we just had a little bit of fun with them. So, but that's going to be the next episode. The previous episode was the last 3 of the transaction cards. That was Hans Gruber from Die Hard, Sweeney Todd, and of course David Powers, Kiefer Sutherland's character from The Lost Boys. So go back, check out those episodes. Again, hit the comments if you have any questions. If you want to get in on the next Frank and you weren't in on last year's Frank, and then also make sure you guys go to fantasypowersleague.com, reach out to Hero J on X and Blue Sky and wherever you can find this man. Ask me and I can get you into the Discord, and you can have a conversation with them there if you need to. But we need to get you in that Fantasy Powers League as well. So Chris, appreciate your time, man. Thank you for coming on and indulging me.
yeah, of course. Thanks, Justin. Anytime. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And tell Nate I said hi. Tell Mark to screw off.
Of course.
Love y'all. Have a great night.